Hello BookTube, my name is Sarah and welcome to my channel. Today I'm coming to you with my weekly reads for March 17th of 2018. Happy St. Patrick's Day everybody. No, I'm not wearing green today, I do apologize. Surprisingly, I don't own a lot of green shirts. I have one, and which is surprising because I've been told that green looks good on me, but just it's a color I don't gravitate towards clothing wise. But yesterday we had a little contest at work, and it was for, wearing green, and you could win prizes and things like that. So I wore my one green shirt to work yesterday, so sorry. But yeah, happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. I have a lot of books to talk about in this wrap-up, 6 of them. I finished another 6 books this week, so I'm super pleased with myself. But I don't want to, waffle on for too long. This is like the 8th time I've started to record this, and I have not gotten past the introduction. I've either had cats fighting, or ice flub up and I have to start over again, or in one I went off on some tangent for 5 minutes about something completely unrelated to books. So that's not why you guys are here. So yes, 6 books this week. Now, for the what's in my mug, it's nothing interesting, it's water. I have a bottle of water. I'm just trying to keep hydrated today. So yeah, so not terribly interesting, but let's jump right into what I finished reading this week. So the first book that I finished this week was Murder at the House of Rooster Happiness by David Casarett. This is book number 1 in the Ethical Chang My Detective Agency. It was narrated on audio by Kristen Cablini, I believe, and it was published in 2016 by Red Hook. I gave this book 4 stars, and it has an average rating on Goodreads of 3.71 stars. I got 2 challenges completed out of this one. One from the What to Read in 2018 challenge, it was task number 3, and it was to essentially sort your TBR by 50 books per page, and then go to the last page, so essentially one of your 50 newest books, and read that one. So this obviously fit the bill. The other one was for the Fairy Tale Spell Out, and I got the D in Cinderella. Guys, I really enjoyed this book, and was hoping, every book that we read that we're hoping we're going to enjoy it. But this one I wasn't exactly sure, but I did end up liking it, and, I found myself excited about sitting down to listen to it. Sorry if you can hear the cats in the background. I have the door cracked about that much, the back door, and Bernard is a bully, and if Goran tries to even stick his nose near the door, Bernard will hiss at him. But anyway, so if that's what you hear, I do apologize. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book. The main woman in the story is an ethical nurse, and her job is to make sure that ethically, is that even a word? Everything is practiced properly, to go through proper procedures, and they're doing things by their code of ethics and stuff like that. And she is hired on by a local detective to find out about this woman who supposedly brought her husband into the hospital already dead, and the policeman who was on rounds that night in the emergency room, he remembers the woman bringing another husband in to a different hospital who was already dead. So, there's that mystery. There's also another mystery. There's a few little mysteries in this book, and it's really, really fun. One of them was this man who was like a farmer from, out in the country, and he would just sit in the lobby, I guess, or the waiting room for the intensive care unit. Wouldn't talk to anybody, wouldn't look at anybody. When they tried to approach him, he'd take off. They thought maybe he was homeless. It was kind of trying to figure out who he was and why he was there. And then there was an American couple who were on their honeymoon in Thailand. The whole book takes place in Thailand. And there was a horrible incident involving an elephant, and the man is he's critically injured, and, whether he's going to make it or not. And, so like I said, there's like these 3 mystery kind of things in there. Now, they weren't like edge of your seat mysteries. This was truly a cozy mystery. It was very, very interesting, and I loved how the main character often fancied herself as a detective. She kept, referring to herself as a detective and things like that, and it was just really cute. It really got into, of course, sorry, cat scratching, I had a scratch post, really into Thailand and the culture and the food. A lot of talk about the food that they eat in Thailand. That was thoroughly, thoroughly interesting. Sorry, sir, did you want to get up there? Excuse me, I'll be right back. Sorry guys, the tower has been uncovered and the cat has decided to join us, so We got to keep the cats happy or else I'd never get anything recorded. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoy. He's peeking over my shoulder. Hi, Goran. He's my good boy. Not that Bernard is a bad cat. He's a good cat. He just doesn't get along that great with other cats. Goran's my good guy. He's my big guy. Like, I mean, he's very intimidating. He found some treats that were hiding up there. He's kind of big and intimidating. He's 26 pounds of pure muscle. And, you know, but he's just such a little softy. Like, he's truly a, I want to love everybody and not fight with anybody. So anyway, yes, I thoroughly enjoyed this book. Oh, the main character in this book has a cat. And, you know, she comes home to this cat at night and she talks to him like he's a person. And it was really a lot of fun. And I will definitely be checking out the second book in the series. The narration on this was fantastic. And, you know, I really loved it. So yeah, I highly recommend this book. The next book that I finished was Greek for Beginners by Jackie Braun. This is book number 32 in the Harlequin Kiss imprint. It was narrated on audio by Maxine Mitchell, and it was published in 2013 by Harlequin. I gave this book 4 stars. It has an average rating on Goodreads of 3.62 stars. I got 3 challenges completed of this one. The Fairy Tale Spell Out. I got the G in Ugly Duckling and the B in Bluebeard. For the Cinderella Team week 6 task, which was read a book with a wedding in it. This one fit the bill. And Pass the Parcel has restarted. If you guys have been watching me for a while, back in the fall, I did a challenge with the romance readers group on Goodreads called Pass the Parcel. And you're put into teams, and every week there is a new task that's assigned. And you have to read a book that qualifies, that meets that task. And anyway, it's really fun. It's one of my favorite challenges, my new favorite challenges, but this is now round number 10. So the last round was round 9. This is round 10. So for week 1, it was to read a book set in Europe. And at first I thought, oh, that's easy. I'll read a Regency. But that's not Europe. That's the UK. So they actually gave you a list on Wikipedia of all the European countries. And I literally went onto Audible and searched the word Greek because I was kind of scrolling through and I went Italy, France, you know, stuff like that. And I thought, oh, Greece would be kind of fun. So I searched Greek and this book came up and it was only 6 hours long on audio. So at the rate I listened to it, it was only 3 hours long. So it was great. I really like this story, you guys. I was expecting to enjoy it. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did. It was a really cute story. It's about a woman named Darcy and a man named Nick. And Darcy, literally 2 weeks before the story starts, she dumped her fiance. They were within a week of getting married. And as it says in the book, he got the condo and she got the honeymoon. So the honeymoon was a 2-week trip to Greece, or to Athens. And so she decided she was going to go by herself and kind of, you know, start afresh and that kind of thing. So she arrives in Greece at the airport, and there's no one waiting for her. It was supposed to be this whole tour that was booked. Sorry, you can see the cattail. And this whole tour was booked, and, you know, this 5-star hotel and, you know, all this tour package and stuff. Well, it turns out the ex-fiance was quite a cheapskate, and it wasn't what they thought it was going to be. Kind of one of those you get what you pay for. So she ends up running to this guy named Nick. And he offers to take her to her hotel. Well, her hotel is run down. It's partly in construction. Excuse me. She doesn't have a lot of money because this trip was all fully paid for. So they're trying to get in touch with the guy who ran this tour group. And he's hungover. He's not answering the phone. You know, it's like, it's a comedy of errors in a way. You know, if it was happening to you in real life, it would probably be very devastating and very scary. But, you know, she kind of befriends Nick and the two of them start a relationship. But it's a very slow burn romance, which I really appreciated considering she just split up with her fiance. So it's a lot of flirting, a lot of, you know, they're going on dates and things like that. Nothing actually happens within the relationship until almost the very end. And there's this great bit at the end because I thought, oh, you know, a part of me was going to be like, even though I know it's a romance, I kind of don't want them to get together right after the 2 weeks because, again, she just came off of a 6-year relationship with this guy that she was going to marry. It's rebound. It's pure rebound, right? But they come to an understanding at the end of these 2 weeks. And, you know, without giving too much away, they decide to meet up again in 6 months. So I really like that aspect of it. The narration on this was just absolutely great. It was really slow. These are not very long books. They're right around the 200-page mark. And I was a little surprised when I saw that the audio itself was 6 hours. And I'm like, holy cow, that seems awfully long for such a short book. But the narrator spoke so slowly that I automatically listen to everything at 2 times speed. I don't start at 1 time and work my way up. I automatically set it for 2 time and leave it at that. But I had to check to see whether I actually had it on double speed, because even at that speed, it still seems slow to me. Does that make sense? But other than that, the narration on this was fantastic. This was part of the Audible romance package. So if you have that, definitely go and check it out. This would be such a great read for the summer, considering it's Greece and by the ocean. And I mean, look at that cover. It's just lovely. So yeah, and this was also one that wasn't originally on my TBR. I think I mentioned in my last video, my TBR is now subject to change. I might add things in, I might take things away. I'm still going to do my TBR videos every month, but they could change depending on, I know a lot of people say they're mood readers, and I'm a challenge reader. So depending on the challenge, the TBR could change. So anyway, there's that. So the one thing that I forgot to mention before I started talking about all these books, unfortunately this week, it seemed to be with the books that I read, they kind of did this. And then it kind of bumped back up at the very end. But as I go through these books that I read, sadly, they're going to get less and less good, for lack of a better word. They started to kind of decrease in my enjoyment factor. Let's put it that way. So the next book that I finished was Flawless by Heather Graham. This is book number 1 in the New York Confidential series. It was published in 2016 by Mira. I gave it 3.5 stars, and it has an average rating of 3.92 stars on Goodreads. I got 3 challenges completed out of this one. This was my March 2018 TBR jar pick. If you watched my my TBR or my anticipated reads rewind videos, this is the one that I picked in February to read in March. For the fairy tale spell out, I got the H in Nightingale. And for fairy tale bingo, for week number 2 was Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And so that was the prompt, and you had to read a book with a 3 in the page count. And this book had 304 pages, so obviously it fit. I enjoyed this one. I mean, 3.5 stars. I thought it was a good book. It was very interesting. Not what I'm used to reading with Heather Graham, because, Law and Disorder was like this too. But with like the Crew of Hunters series and things like that, she writes more on the paranormal romantic suspense spectrum, if you will. And this one had no paranormal aspects at all. It centers around a bar in New York City called Finnegan's, and there is a family that runs it, siblings, 3 brothers and a sister. And the sister is actually a psychologist by trade. That's what she went to university for, but she still helps out at the pub because it's a family pub, when she can. There's been some jewel heists happening in the Diamond District in New York and over in New Jersey, and it was just literally stealing the diamonds, which is bad, but it's just stealing. Now they've resorted to murder, and 2 people have been killed. And, when the FBI steps in to find out what's going on, they find that some of these, the people that they're chasing seem to center around this pub, this Finnegan's pub. And the story goes from there. So it was really, really interesting. A lot of action. It was a very, it was a quick romance, or it wasn't insta-love, it was insta-lust, as I like to say. Which I find a lot more plausible than insta-love, because you can absolutely be attracted to somebody and then go off of those attractions and go from there. But insta-love's a little different, in my opinion. But anyway, it was a really good story. I really, really enjoyed it, and I'm very, very much looking forward to continuing on with the series. The next book that I finished was Listen to Me by Kristen Proby. This is book number 1 in the Fusion series. It was narrated on audio by Sebastian York and Ariel de la Selle. This was published in 2016 by William Morrow Paperbacks. I gave it 3.5 stars. It has an average rating of 4.04 stars on Goodreads. 3 more challenges completed of this one. For the March 2018 monthly challenge, for number 8, which was the Spring Vernal Equinox, which was you were to read a book that either had like flowers on the cover or the word spring in the title, or they said like a book that puts a spring in your step. And this book is about music, and I love music, and so I thought that fit. Originally I had, I think, Flowers on Main by Cheryl Woods, but again, to try and fit challenges, some stuff is being moved around. This was also for the fairy tale spell out, the L in Little Mermaid and the P in Three Pigs. Or maybe that should be Three Little Pigs, I would say. And then for the Mad Hatter's Tea Party, for spin number 3, which was task number 10, I know all these numbers, right? Read a book with a musical instrument on the cover. He is holding a guitar, or the guitar is leaning against the chair, I should say. So this book, this series, the Fusion series, is about a group of friends. Sorry, I have a cat fur. It's about a group of friends who run a bar restaurant in outside of Portland, Oregon, called Seduction. And the main character, Addison, or Addie, she is kind of like, she runs the front end, they say. Like, she's there kind of, you know, to make sure everything, she's like the manager. You know, she'll go around to tables at night and how's your meal? Are you enjoying yourself? That kind of PR, you know, put on a good face kind of person. So they decided that they have this like little stage in this restaurant, and that they want to hire a musician to play on the weekends. So her and the girls go to this this open mic night, and they hear this guy sing, and it turns out he used to be a very, very famous rock musician who fronted a band, and something happened in his past, and the band split up. So now he just wants to play just for fun, essentially. He misses playing music. So they hire him, and then, of course, his name is Jake. Him and Addie start a relationship, and the story goes from there. I had a couple problems with this book. One, now, you guys know, love scenes in books don't bother me in the least. You know, but they don't faze me. They don't, you know, as long as they're well done, I'm perfectly fine with it. This one, it was too much. It's almost like the author was told, you have to write a book that is 300 pages. And she went, cripes, I only have enough for 200 pages or 250 pages, so let's put in a love scene here, 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 and here. Does that make sense? It just seemed like it's like, okay, we get it. You know, we didn't need page after page after page of these scenes. Granted, they were well written, you know, but it's like I'm listening to it and you're like, oh, really, again? You know, like, it was just like, okay. The other thing was Addison. She has a history with musicians, and her ex-boyfriend was a musician, and he cheated on her and all these things. So, of course, she has trust issues. And I get that. But if that's the case, why are you going for another musician? But I guess that's part of the story, you know what I mean? Part of, like, her healing, I guess. And she even admits to, at certain points, like, maybe I'm being a little rough on him, you know, like, giving him crap for doing something that it would be perfectly reasonable. You know, but, and the way she made it sound, it's as if she's dated all these very famous musicians, and I just thought, really? Like, she seemed really, really full of herself. But beyond all that, I really did like this. I did like the story. I like the writing. I like Kristen Proby. And I am interested in continuing on with this series because outside of all of that, I really, really loved the relationship between the friends. I think it's 5 women who own this Seductions restaurant. And there's this great scene where they all get completely drunk after her and Jake, like, have a breakup. And it is just hysterical. I mean, it's just like, talk about having your friends there for you. You know, they're all getting drunk. And the stuff they start talking about, just going off on tangents. It was so well written, and I really, really enjoyed it. The narration on this was okay. I had never heard Ariel before, the female narration. I really liked her. She did a good job. Sebastian York I've listened to before, and I find, personally, he seems very monotone to me. He doesn't have a lot of acting in his voice. It's almost like he's just reading it. I mean, it's a good voice, but I just don't think it suited the character. But yeah, I mean, still, it wasn't bad on audio, and I enjoyed it, and this one I got from the library, so it's not available on the romance package, but it was still really good if you want to check it out. All right, the next book that I finished was it's definitely the worst book I've read this week. I almost guarantee it's the worst book I've read this year. It was bad, guys. Really bad. Broken Juliet by Leisa Rayven. This is book number 2 in the Star-Crossed duology. Thank God the duology is over. I know there's a third book, but it doesn't center around these 2 characters. I will not be continuing. This was narrated on audio by Andy Arnett. It was published in 2015 by Pan. I gave it 2 stars, but it has an average rating on Goodreads of 4.16 stars, so maybe I missed something. I actually, several times throughout reading this, considered DNFing it. But I didn't because I really needed it for challenges. I know that's bad. If I hadn't been listening to it on audio, because I think on audio it was only 3.5 hours long, so I finished it in like a day and a bit. If I had been reading it like an e-copy or a physical copy, I would have definitely DNF'd it. But because it was on audio, it was a very quick read for me. I just kind of plugged through it. So the 4 challenges I got completed out of this one was my March monthly challenge for challenge number 9, which was Near Miss Day, which was read a book that has over 10,000 reviews, or 5,000 reviews, and this one has close to 10,000, I think. The next one was for the Fairy Tale Sampler, which was Red Riding Hood, read a book with a red cover, obviously. And it's so sad, this cover is so gorgeous. The next one was for the Fairy Tale Spellout. I got the Bee and Bluebird and an Elle and Ugly Duckling. And then for the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs Quarterly Challenge, this one is new, with the Triple RC group. There are 35 different prompts, and you can pick what level you want to start with, but you can always move up. So you can start with as low as 5 books, and you have 3 months, so it's a quarterly challenge, 3 months to get through as many of them as you can. So they're all related to Snow White characters and to precious and semi-precious gemstones. So this was for Ruby, which was read a book with a red cover. So I got it for 2. Yeah, okay guys, I'm gonna rant about this book for a little while. Hope you don't mind. I am putting in the description box below, in case you want to skip this, in the description box below, timestamps to each of my reviews, so you can feel free to scroll ahead to the next review. Also, if you like this book, please do not think this is a personal, me thinking anything personally of you. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and this just happens to be mine. So, to start off with, this book was not needed at all. I read Bad Romeo, which was the first book in the series, last February. This was essentially a rehash of that entire book. This could have ended up being an epilogue on the first book. There was a little advance to the plot, because the way this story and Bad Romeo, the whole premise of this story, just so you guys know if you're not familiar with this series, is that it is a new adult series. Is that it's a couple named Ethan and Cassie, and they meet in college, but it's a college for the performing arts. So keep that in mind. And so that was 6 years ago, and then it goes to present day. So the present day parts of the book only follow like a 2 or 3 week time span. The backstory goes through their 3 years of college, 3 or 4 years of college, or however long it is. So that's kind of the premise of the story, and it's a very angst-filled relationship. She falls in love with him the minute she sees him, and he's very brooding, very, dark, very, I don't want to talk to anybody, almost I'm too cool for all of this kind of idea. So like I said, this story was not needed. The plot did barely advanced at all. We got more rehashing of what happened back in college, and we got a little bit like a 1 week time span of what happened in present day, essentially. So that was my one issue with this book. My other issue with this book was these 2 characters really pissed me off. Sorry for the stronger language, but they really did. Both of them were just stupid. They have broken up and gotten together 3 times, and she thinks that this time it's going to be okay. It wasn't okay the last 2 times. What makes you think this is going to be any different? Oh, wait, because he went into therapy. So that makes everything better because, he's carrying crap from his childhood, which I get. I'm not knocking that. But that just doesn't magically go away within a few weeks of therapy. That's years. That's, if he's been carrying this stuff around since childhood, and this is stuff that's affecting all of his relationships and stuff like that, sweetheart, no. It's not going to work. And, the last, like I said, they broke up 3 times and got back together every time. And all I kept thinking as I was reading this book was that saying, what is it? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Well, this girl's an idiot. I mean, this relationship was so unbelievably toxic. It just, and I know this is geared, I am not the target audience for this book. This was a new adult novel. So, I mean, it wasn't a YA, it was a new adult. And this kind of encompassed everything I do not like about new adult books. I just think that I can't even put it into words. It drove me crazy. Their relationship drove me crazy. It just kept going around and around and around in circles. I was getting dizzy. I'm like, this is just stupid. They'd fight then they'd make up, and then they'd fight again, and then they'd make up again, and then they wouldn't talk for 6 months, and then they'd start talking again, and then they'd just have sex, and then really? Really? This was the most toxic relationship I have ever read in a book. This was not a love story. I'm sorry. I always think about that meme that's for Romeo and Juliet, because obviously this is what the titles are based off of. And it's something like Romeo and Juliet wasn't a love story. It was a 13-year-old and a 17-year-old, something about killing themselves. Sincerely, everyone who wrote it. I'm going to put the meme up here, actually, in case you guys want to read it, because it is funny. But that's all I kept thinking about while reading this. I'm like, this is not a love story. This is a tragic train wreck. And then the other thing that really got to me was that, like I said about the Listen to Me book, about the amount of sex scenes in the book, this was even more so. Again, I guarantee you the author was just trying to fill space. That's what it felt like. Every single time I turned around, these two were at it like jackrabbits. It's like, really? And it's not like it's like a paragraph or two. It's page after page after page. Like, I'm sitting there going, really? Like, I got to points where I just started fast forwarding it. Like, I'm sorry. I couldn't. This was it was I think an 8-hour-long audiobook. At my speed, 4 hours. I think I cut it down even further than that. If I got this one from the library and on Overdrive or Libby, you can't go any higher than 2 times speed. I so badly wish I had this on Audible, just so I could have kicked it up to 2.5 when those scenes came up. And it wasn't just sex scenes. It was the amount of sexual content in this book. Constant. I mean, it's almost like they were throwing it in for shock value. Like, oh, how much can we possibly get away with saying? And it wasn't like it was totally out there or totally pushing any boundaries or anything like that. It was just constant. And, I was a college student once. We were too busy studying to worry about these kind of things. I'm sorry. Now, granted, of course, it was a performance art college, but still. And the last thing that drove me crazy, and I just have to mention this, for those of you who may have read it, I don't know, what did you guys think about this? There's a scene in this book that literally made my skin crawl. So again, performing arts college. They have a teacher, and this teacher, is teaching them different things, like how to display emotions and things like that you would typically learn in that kind of an environment. They get this, project to do, for lack of a better word. And it's to try and bring them out more, to bring them out of their shells a bit more, to teach them to play a character, to play, something beyond what they're used to being personally. That's great. So the teacher has these plays that she wants them to perform a scene from, and they're paired up into groups of 2, and each group gets a different play. Supposedly these plays are to be very, very controversial. I've never heard of any of them before. I don't know if they're legit plays that exist. I didn't think to look it up. I didn't want to look it up. Not that I had a problem with them, each to their own, but again, these are 18, 19-year-old, 20-year-old college students. So, for example, the one play that Cassie is asked to perform is she's playing a lesbian. Okay, fine. She has to kiss another woman, like another student, in this scene, and play act sex. No. I'm sorry. And then same with Ethan. He has to play act as being gay, and exactly the same thing. There's another student who has to play that he is a he's a businessman and, very upstanding citizen, but at night when he comes home, he likes to be, whipped by his wife and all these. These are college students. And I just thought, again, how they were just trying to push the envelope. I don't have children, but I know damn well if my little niece, she wouldn't be little then, she'd be 18 or 19. If she came to me and she's like, oh, Aunt Sarah, I'm in college for the performing arts. Oh, what are you doing for your grades? Oh, I'm learning how to do that. We're doing this. I'd be floored. I'd be calling the school and reaming them a new one. What do you think you're doing? These are kids. I couldn't wrap my head around it. And I know, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, well, there are actors and actresses who will step out of their comfort zone and play these kind of roles in movies. And I get that. But the difference is they have a choice. They can pick up the script and think, oh yeah, this sounds really interesting. I think I'd like to act in this movie. This isn't part of their grade. If they don't do this, it's not like they're going to fail. You know what I mean? And I think the author was just trying to push the envelope, and I did not like it at all. I'm sorry. And again, Obviously, I am in the minority for this one because this book, like I said, has what? 4.16 star ratings on Goodreads. People are giving this thing 5 stars. And again, if you were one of those people who thought it was a 5-star book, correct me. Like, let's have a discussion below. How am I wrong? Please. You know, like, I'm sorry. I did not like this book at all. Okay, that's it. Rant over. On to the next one. Sorry about the camera moving. I went to go hit it to stop it, which I have to do, unfortunately, because I can only record so long at a time. And so now you can actually see the cat. Anyway, the last book that I finished this week, speaking of cats, is Sheltered by the Millionaire by Mann. Little cute little kitty on the cover. This book redeemed my week, thank goodness, because like I said, it just kept going downhill. This is book number 2 in the Texas Cattlemen's Club After the Storm series. This is the Harlequin Desire. It's number 2336 in the series. It was published in 2014 by Harlequin. I gave it 3.5 stars. It has an average rating of 3.85 stars on Goodreads. I got 5 challenges completed out of this one. So the first one was for the Triple RC Monthly Challenge. Number 1, M is for March. Mann, the M. For my Stacking the Series, this is my 10th out of 55 books. For the Fairy Tale Sampler, I can talk. I swear this is just water and not vodka. Puss in Boots. It was Read a Book with a Cat on the cover. I got the S in Wild Swans and the C in Frog Prince. And again, for the Snow White and Seven Dwarfs Quarterly Challenge, I got Citrine, which was Read a Book with a yellow-orange cover or with a wealthy character. The main character in this one is very wealthy. So this series, this After the Storm series, what it's about a small town in Texas called Royal, Texas. Sorry about the flashing. I think it's the light from outside because it's so bright. And this tiny town in rural Texas that gets hit by a tornado. And essentially this is all the aftermath and all the stories that happen afterward. So this is the story of Megan and Whit. And he is an extremely wealthy rancher. And they have been butting heads for years because she runs the local no-kill animal shelter. And she wanted to buy up this plot of land to build this facility on. And he kind of bought it out from underneath her and didn't let her buy it. So the two of them have been at odds ever since. And then this book opens with the hurricane just having run through town. And she is trying to get to her young daughter Evie at the preschool or the daycare. And, you know, they meet up and he actually meets her there because she was driving and her car got struck by a tree. So he ends up taking her to her daughter, and then the relationship kind of goes from there. He kind of starts to find ways to see her and things like that. It was very, very sweet. I really liked it. There was, you know, of course, some conflict that there always is in a romance novel. But Mann is a great, great author, and I really enjoyed this. I loved all the animals and hearing about all the animals. And, you know, the one thing Wilt does is because after the storm, of course, it goes to a month later after the storm. The shelter is filled with animals that have been displaced because of the storm or because their owners took off and left and kind of abandoned them, or, you know, what have you. So he ends up allowing use of his private jet. Of course, he's got a private jet, to take a bunch of cats to Colorado, to foster homes in Colorado, just so they can free up some space in the shelter. And it was a really cute story, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it was a really nice way to finish off my reading week. So what am I currently reading? My current audiobook is 6 Years by Harlan Coben. This is being narrated on audio by Scott Brick. Guys, this book is so good. I have never read Harlan Coben before, but I now know why so many people like him. This could be, you know, something along the lines of, I've never read a thriller before, or I don't read very many thrillers. So if I read one that's halfway decent, I'm thinking it's fantastic. You know, if I read a lot more of them, I might not think it's that great. But right now, I think it's absolutely fantastic. It is so interesting. It's about a man who falls in love with this woman, and they spend like the summer together. And then he finds out she's suddenly getting married to somebody. And he shows up at her wedding, and she pretty much tells him, leave us alone. And then 6 years pass, and he finds the husband's obituary and decides to track down the ex-girlfriend. And she's nowhere to be found. No one has seen from her. No one has heard from her. No one remembers the two of them together. No one remembers what happened that summer. So it's been really, really interesting. I have about 2 hours left on the audio, and I definitely plan to finish it today. Like I said, just loving it. Absolutely loving it. My current ebook is A Lesson in Love and Murder by Rachel McMillan. This is book number 2 in the Herringford and Watts series. This is a cozy mystery about two female detectives that is set in the city of Toronto in 1912. Absolutely charming. I just love this book so, so much. I'm only about 40 or 50 pages into it. There's a whole thing going on with this woman coming to town, and she's riling people up, for work equity rights and things like that. And then there's been these explosions of the trolleys. There's been 2 of them. And what I love, I guess maybe because this is my city, is that, you're reading the book and it's like, the accident happened at the corner of University and Queen, which is, of course, an area of town I'm very familiar with. The girls' detective agency is over on King Street. They talk about going to Cabbagetown. And, I know I read a lot of books that take place in, like, New York City or, Portland or whatever. And maybe it's just me, maybe because it's my town, I notice it more. But I don't recall that a lot of other books do this and will name off streets and name off intersections and name off areas of town. There's probably some that do it, but, I think this one, the author's really playing to that whole demographic from the city who might really enjoy this. The one thing I did get a really good kick out of was the second trolley explosion took place, and they said that the students at Osgoode Hall were like peering out of windows to see what was going on, and I'm like, Osgoode Hall! That is the college that my grandfather went to. Now that, like I said, this book takes place in 1912, and my first thought was, I wonder if my grandfather, not that these are real life events, this is all made up, it's all fictionalized, but I wonder if my grandfather was at the school then. But I'm like, no, wait, 1912. He wasn't born until 1922. He would have been 96 this summer, but he passed about 3 years ago. And but Osgoode Hall is a very prestigious school for lawyers in Toronto, and he graduated from that school. And my grandmother has on the wall at their house the photograph of his entire graduating class. And one of the people he graduated with, just side note outside the book here, guys, was one of the, it's not Chief Justice. Something like the Canadian Supreme Court. I'm sorry, I don't know the terminology from it, but he served on that. But he was in my grandfather's graduating class. We're going back a number of years. My grandfather was at the school in the 40s, I think. Because if he was born in 22, so he would have been in there during the 40s. But yeah, and he ended up being a lawyer in Toronto for a number of years. But just to hear Osgoode Hall, it was kind of neat. But yeah, I am really enjoying it. These are really, really cute mysteries. It's very much if you guys are familiar, if any of you, the rest of you are Canadian, there's a TV show called The Murdoch Mysteries, where it's around the same time period, I think. And the guy, he's like a Sherlock Holmes, like a Sherlock Holmes kind of character, and, solving mysteries and stuff in Toronto. So that's what it reminds me of. But yeah. And then my print book that I'm currently still reading, I'm 60 pages into it, guys. It's Secrets at Court by Blythe Gifford. I had planned on actually finishing this week, but it didn't happen. With the time change last Saturday night, and my husband actually switched shifts at work. For about the last 6 months, he's been working night shift, 11 p.m. till 7 a.m. And on Saturday, the day of the actual time change, he switched over to afternoon shift, which is 3 in the afternoon to 11 at night, which is fantastic for us. But trying to switch sleeping schedules, plus the time change, plus the fact that I wasn't feeling well on Monday, it hasn't been, I've gotten a lot of, but to sit down and read a physical book, because I tend to read this before bed, I even marked off the pages, of how far I want to get every day. So I'm hoping by next week I'll have this one done. I'd like to, by the end of today, to get to here, to get another 60 pages read. It should be no problem. I'm going to plop myself down on the couch after this. Maybe I'll read while I'm editing, But so far I'm really enjoying it. This is a medieval book, and it's about a woman who wants to marry one of Prince Edward's or King Edward's sons. I think the son is Edward. Maybe it's Prince Edward? I'm not sure. But it takes place, the book starts off in 1361 at Windsor Castle. So it's very, very entertaining, very interesting. The main character here, Anne, is her name Anne? Anne. The poor thing, she was born with a club foot, so she has a disability. So it's very interesting to hear how she kind of gets around, and the other main character, Nicholas, kind of her love interest, if you will. He's the one who's being sent as a messenger for the king, or for the Pope, to say whether this marriage is going to be okay. And of course they meet and a relationship goes from there. But, that he even comments to himself that, she's awfully lucky being a lady in waiting, because, you know, she would end up on the streets or what have you, or would have ended up dead years ago because of this disability that she has. So it's very, very interesting, and I'm really enjoying it. So before I let you guys go, I'll quickly show you what I'm crafting on this weekend. But actually, I have to bring something else up because I'm going to be working on my cross stitch. Let me show you really quick. This is, there's not going to be much to see on here, guys. I do apologize. There's what I have done. Now, as you can see, there's a lot down here that I've done, but I have it hidden because I had to move this up so I could do some work up here. So unfortunately, I did finish the Loch Ness Monster. She's over here, but you can't see her. I'm working on this guy. It starts with an I, his name. He was in Neil Gaiman's American Gods. He shoots fire out of his eyes. That's the dude. That's who I'm going to be working on. I'd like to get him done today because then I can start marches because I'm a little behind still. But I'll show you guys because I have it on my Instagram. So those of you who may or may not follow me on Instagram, there's Nessie. And that's what she, sorry for the glare, but that's what she looked like. Isn't she cute? I love the fish. But yeah, so I got that one done earlier this week. So that was cool. But anyway, guys, that's it. I'm sure this video is horribly long. I appreciate you all sitting down and talking with me again. Yeah, I have, my reading has just gone through the roof, and I am so super pleased with it. I have added some books to my TBR for March. I may or may not get them all done. I'm hoping I do. I should. If I keep up with the pace I'm at, I should. And I'm not killing myself. That's the thing, is that I'm not feeling stressed about any of the books that I'm reading. And because of all the challenges I'm doing, there are some new ones, like I said, that are getting put onto the TBR that I'm super excited about. And books that I may not have gotten to for a while, but I get to a little bit sooner because of a challenge. So that's always fun. Anyway, guys, that is it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books and what you thought about them. Or what was your favorite book that you read this week. And until my next video, guys, take care and happy reading. Bye.